in the forefront of customer experience for more than 2 decades. So this topic is near to my heart, and great opportunity to talk about it.
Fantastic. Well, we're really privileged to have you with us, and you really are representing those both worlds. So wonderful. Thanks again, Shreesha. And now over to the one and only Jonathan.
Yeah, hi guys. So Jonathan Daniels, thank you for that, Sue, and lovely to hear your
Yeah.
intro, Shreesha. I'm Jonathan Daniels, originally from the UK, but I live now in Belgium. I've been here for about 4 years, and I run Centric. So we are primarily a customer experience consultancy, and also we run a lot of online events around thought leadership, just to try and push the discipline of customer experience forward. I also run CX Brussels, so I run a lot of events in Brussels, in and around Belgium, basically. And that's how I met Sue, because I saw a lot about Sue, and I read a lot of articles probably about 2 years ago. And then I saw that she was into something called customer success. And I was thinking to myself, okay, this sounds like customer experience. So what's the difference? So I invited Sue over a few years ago to come and speak at one of our events. And yeah, since then we realized that there was such a massive overlap, and that's something that we'll get into during this conversation.
Yeah, really. And yeah, I really enjoyed that event in Brussels at Oracle, wasn't it, over a year ago, just before we had the onslaught of COVID. So that what's really got this ball rolling, I think. So before we go on, just a very few tips and tricks for the housekeeping. So we'd really like to make this event as interactive as possible. So there is a chat, as you've seen. A lot of you have already started to chat, so that's fantastic. So just put your questions in there as we're going along, and we'll be selecting a few as we go along. And then at the end, we'll be reserving 50 minutes or so we can also have questions and answers there as well. And there'll also be some polls, so it's really interactive, just to get your take on where you are with customer success and customer experience. So let's carry on. Thank you. You've got the control over the slides, I think, Jason.
Yeah, I'll go to the
Okay.
next slide, and at the
Yes.
same time, Sue, I'll just do a poll to find out which continent everyone's from, if that's okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, shouldn't have done that. Go for it.
Suspense.
Yeah. Quite a lot of people voted, probably about 20 people left, but I mean, Sue, you can probably continue while it's
Yes.
going. It's fine.
Okay. You haven't got a thing with, say, Brits in Europe there in your category, right?
No.
No. Okay. Right. So what we're going to be looking into today, there are three main areas. First of all, the evolution of customer experience and customer success, the origins and where we are with that. And then what we're going to do in the second part is to do a comparison of what are the similarities, what are the differences between customer experience and customer success around the framework, which is called Opt Into, which is my framework, which I use for customer success. So that's going to structure everything we're going to be seeing throughout the rest of the webinar. And then we're going to be seeing, how really, because we're all three of us are advocating for joining this together. So how we can go forward together. So that's the menu for today, and it's really funny actually, because as Jonathan was saying, we met in Brussels just over a year ago, and I started to ponder around this subject just before we met in Brussels, because Shreesha, you invited me. I don't remember. You invited me to a customer experience event in Paris just over a year ago. It was my first ever event for customer experience. And I've always been to lots of customer success events, of course, but never to a customer experience event. And it was there that it dawned on me, because I was very curious to find out what all these customer experience folks were talking about. And it dawned on me just by listening to the speakers, networking, mingling, and talking with everybody, just how many similarities there are between these two worlds. They were going around talking around customer journey maps, NPS, voice of the customer, all these things which we're hearing all the time as well in the customer success world. I think the only difference for that event was the size of the companies, because those companies were all big stock exchange companies in France. Whereas if you go to a customer success event, it's generally startups, it's SaaS world, it's scale ups, a few unicorns, right?
Right.
So the companies were different. And the other major difference was the dress code, right? Because when I go to customer success events, we're all in jeans and hoodies and sneakers. Whereas there, everybody was well dressed in high heels. Well, the ladies at least, not the men, but everyone was well dressed and going around, and it was more of a corporate kind of atmosphere. So that was the striking difference. So this is why now we're getting together, all the three of us, and I'm really excited to look at this analysis and to make a few comments on our experiences and findings.
Yeah, also just to mention, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as we go on, and we'll try and pick them up. We'll try as much as possible, and then we'll have a chance at the end as well. So we'll move on now.
Yeah. So I saw the survey there that the majority of people are from Europe, it looks like. Yeah.
So
Okay.
you should be able to see the results.
Yeah.
They should pop up on your screen right now. You can see, yeah, quite a few from Europe, nearly 50%, 30% from North America. No one from South America or Australasia this time. We're slacking there. And then 15% from Africa and just under 10% from Asia. So it's still quite a nice mix.
Great. It'll be interesting to see as well going forward the differences between customer success and customer experience around the world, the maturity. I think that's great. Wonderful. So to go on, first of all, just a couple of definitions. What do we mean by customer success and customer experience? This is a definition of customer success. It's mine, there are other definitions. Customer success is a win-win business strategy to proactively generate sustainable outcomes and growth for customers and consequently for your company. So really is putting yourself, first of all, in the shoes of your customer in order to generate win-win results. Customer experience, and this is apparently the official definition from the Customer Experience Association Academy, I think.
Professionals Association, yeah.
Right. Sorry for the wording.
Fine, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So customer experience refers to the perception that customers have of an organization, formed on both interactions across touch points, people, and tech over time.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's just to kind of get the ball rolling so that we know what we're talking about. And this is really to show the evolution of both of those worlds, right? So really when we talk about customer experience, it started out mainly in the B2C world. Now it's not just B2C, it's more as well, as I said, with all those big stock exchange companies in the B2B. It was also very prominent in the retail industry, but now it's touching all verticals. And now it's also touching larger companies as well. Okay. So it's not just those smaller companies. Whereas customer success, as we know, it started out in the SaaS world, right? It started out in B2B, not in B2C. But now, as it's evolving and it's gaining in maturity, it's not just SaaS companies, but it's any subscription companies, any recurring revenue companies. They're actually latching on to customer success because they see that it's of utmost importance in order to survive and thrive. But now we're seeing any companies, it can be any industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be a recurring revenue model. Everybody's thinking about customer success. Now, just to throw in a little bit of those ideas about the buzzwords which we're hearing in those separate kind of evolutions of customer success and customer experience, we're hearing in the world of customer experience words like moments of truth, touch points, loyalty. We're hearing more and more around customer experience platforms like Medallia. And then in the customer success world, we're hearing things like trusted advisor, engagement models, onboarding, health scores. And in the tech world, we're hearing more and more about customer success platforms. And these are actually converging in the middle, you can see there, because we're all of us, whether we're customer experience folks or customer success folks, we're all talking about those things that you can see in the middle. I won't go through all of them, but we're all talking about customer journeys, segmentation, voice of the customer, whatever. So this is why we're now thinking, shouldn't we start to talk to each other a little bit more? So if we go to the next slide, and this is just to put it in a little bit of perspective around the two. So customer success, it really is to guide customers to succeed. And that is, as I just said, it's mainly a consequence originally of the subscription economy, but not just now. What we're also seeing in terms of a trend in customer success now is the realization that customers don't necessarily want to be handheld all the way. They want to become autonomous. They want to be able to do things by themselves. So there's an increase in this self-service customer success approach, which is done through lots of different means, automation being one of them. And the other complexity, I would say, around customer success is that because mainly it's B2B, we have multiple stakeholders with varying needs, varying expectations, right? So we could be talking to the stakeholders, the budget owner, the managers of the teams who are using the platform, or even the users themselves, right? So we have to really understand what are those different variants of expectations and how to manage all that. So, Jonathan, for the customer experience part of that.
On the customer experience side, so there's a few things that happen in the environment today, which are really giving rise to the importance of customer experience. So firstly is obviously social media. Before, when you had a bad experience or a good one, you just share it locally with maybe your friends and family. Now you can put that online. You can upload videos of your experiences, or people upload videos of them creating testimonials and things like this. So the power of social media cannot be underestimated. The second is advancements in tech. So we have things like big data. Also, we have artificial intelligence, and we're just much more ahead, especially in terms of software that we are creating. So now customers expect a certain level of service, basically, and customers don't expect you to hide behind technology, rather use that as a solution to create better experiences. The third is obviously COVID, the digital acceleration. So customers have an expectation right now that you offer great experiences around them. They want you to adapt and innovate, and they say to themselves, actually, COVID has given organizations the time to sit down and really reflect. And this is why customers are demanding better experiences today. What I will do is, before we move to the next slide, I will just ask another poll. So are you working in a customer success or customer experience role currently? So feel free to fill that poll in, and I'll go to the next slide. So
yes. Before we go to the next slide, I'd just like to take Shreesha's take on that, actually. Because Shreesha, obviously you spearheaded, as you said, lots of initiatives and led Strikedeck, which is a customer success platform. And now you're with Medallia, which is a customer experience platform. What's your take on this evolution of the two worlds?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. So the customer expectations have undergone a dramatic transformation over the years, and it has just accelerated with obviously the post-COVID world. The customer centricity has now become more than the buzzword, right? It's being discussed at the board level. You look at any public companies, and especially the ones that have recently gone public, you will find that their primary differentiator is customer experience and customer success. And that's because of the land and expand strategy. Their revenue from their install base, from their customer, is very high, right? And that's what is getting them really high valuation in the public markets. So that's where CS and CX now is more than buzzword. It's actually something that companies tout as a differentiator.
Fantastic. Well, that's encouraging, isn't it? I think that's very encouraging for what we're talking about today. And I'm just looking at the polls, and that's even more encouraging because I can see that the majority, so 40% of the people who are here today, have actually said that they are representing both customer experience and customer success in their roles.
That's great.
So that's great. So we're heading the right way, folks. That's good. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, so moving on, I just wanted to
Hmm.
explain the echo chamber effect. If
Hmm.
people don't know, it's just it's quite a simple concept. This source of the image is from Matthew Syed, and it's just the fact that if you are for instance, myself, a customer experience professional, I'm likely to go onto Amazon and type in customer experience and read all those books. I'm likely to type customer experience like news articles in Google and do those searches. I'll connect with a lot of people, and my content will resonate with a lot of people from customer experience space who are searching for the same thing. And then I'll end up talking to those sorts of people.
Hmm.
And actually, the same thing is happening with Shreesha. Well, Shreesha's sort of in between the two, but more on Sue's side with customer success. You have the big community, and what's happening is we're talking to each other, but
Hmm.
unfortunately, we're not sharing these ideas across different disciplines. I think that's just a case of the nature of the internet. So what we wanted to do here is to try and bridge these two subjects together to at least discuss. And what I did is, in terms of uh, preparing for this webinar, the first thing I did is I wanted to have a look at what I was hearing online. So in these two different sort of echo chambers, so I listened to a lot of customer success podcasts and just did a lot of research to see what the customer success people were saying, and I wanted to compare it with what was coming through or the frameworks that I apply in customer experience. And if you look here, there's a whole load of topics here. So you've got the fact, the focus on customer lifetime value, continuous improvement, designing around the customers, walking in the customer's shoes, the cultural transformation. So that's like the customer centric culture, employee experience, probably more on the customer experience side, the importance of personalization, data analysis obviously is a big one, the importance of storytelling and having that skill, voice of customer obviously, and just the being able to measure the impact on customers. I'm hearing that from both sides, so already that's quite a big overlap and an interesting place to start. I will move on to the next slide, Sue. Hope you
Yes,
Yeah,
this is for Shreesha.
yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I'm going to take the overlapping concept that Jonathan
Hmm.
mentioned even further, right? Customer success and customer experience are complementary, but the way to look at both of them is customer success is inside out view of the customer relationship. It's basically the implicit feedback. It's the data that's already there in an organization telling you how the customer is feeling, how the customer is adopting your product, right? The sentiment that customer uh, is going through. Customer experience, on the other hand, it's the outside in view of the customer relationship. It's the explicit feedback. It's a customer telling you exactly what they're feeling, right? Or supposedly feeling. And so that's one way of looking at it. There's another way of looking at it is the depth and the breadth. So think about customer experience as breadth, which is it touches every customer interaction, right from the sales to post sales. Customer success, on the other hand, view it as breadth. It's post sales. It's going deep in the customer world once they have become your customer, right? That's why you will hear again and again outcome as an important word in the customer success world, because you have to tie it to the business outcome that customer is hoping to accomplish. Customer experience, on the other hand, it's it's all about the experience that customer is going through with your product and service. I saw a question come in from Hannah, which was great, which is, does customer success have an impact on the brand? So anytime you talk about brand, the experience word is more tied to the brand. Customer success is indirectly tied to the brand concept, because if you end up helping your customers accomplish what they are set to accomplish, they will have positive view about your brand. So that's how the customer success and customer experience are coming together. And the main convergence is around customer 360. if you want to help your customers, you have to know everything that's happening with your customers, around your customers. That's why the customer 360 concept is right there in both the concepts.
Love this. Love this. Good to hear from Hannah as well. Thank you for joining.
Yes. No, I love that. And just to summarize that as well, this is a photo, obviously, of a deer and birds, showing how in nature there's this mutualistic interdependence in the animal kingdom. And that's exactly what Shreesha has just been saying. So I think this really summarizes it nicely. I think customer experience really ensures the perception of positive sentiment, and customer success ensures the perception of positive value or outcomes, as Shreesha just mentioned. And I think together, both of them will make your company thrive. And I think, one or the other is not a result. It's not the solution, in fact. And I think we need both together, and that's where we're trying to bridge together both customer success and customer experience. So if we now go on to we mentioned that we'll be going to compare the rest of the customer success and customer experience world through this framework, which is what I call the opt-in framework. It's my framework, which I use, and it's called CS opt-in. So it's a play on words, but it's also an acronym. So the CS means, as you can see in the top there, it's customer centricity is for the C, and the S means service alignment. And those two are really the strategic parts of what we should be doing when we're putting into place a organization of customer success, because it should be something which comes down, which is part of the strategy. And it's only when you have those two strategic pillars into place, customer centricity and the service alignment across the whole of your internal roles, sales, marketing, product, customer success. Once you have those firmly in place, then you can start doing the operationalization of customer success, and which is around this framework, which I call opt-in. Opt-in because obviously, if you're in a SaaS company, you want your customers to opt in for life. But opt-in meaning organization, processes, tools, information, data, and integration, meaning integration in the sense of how do you make sure that that is transforming internally, because when you're putting customer success into place, it shouldn't just be the operational aspects which you're putting into place, it's the strategy as well. So you should be doing an internal change management effort, transformation effort, in order to make all of those different elements happen, right? So we're going to be now looking at each of these elements. We're not going to be looking at everything because for the purpose of time, but we're mainly going to be looking at organization, process, tools, and information data. So that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the webinar. So Shreesha, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there, that strategy and operationalization are linked concepts, and that is very important. It's easy to say we are customer led or we are customer growth oriented, but what does it actually mean? Does it translate into all the processes that are there in the organization? Everything that you do you take a customer view in that? If you are talking about brand, how does customer perceive your brand? Are you taking feedback on that front? If you are talking about having a customer facing role, uh, how does it get aligned with the strategy? So all of that comes into the play here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. Thank you, Shreesha. So if we continue, first of all, we're going to analyze some of the organizational aspects. That's the first part. So yeah, this is just to show you how, in fact, when you're putting into place customer success and customer experience, it should be this cultural DNA. So it's a mindset, it's a philosophy, and it really is translated from the customer centric strategy, which should be defined, right? And so, in fact, as Shreesha just said, every decision which is being made should be known by each of these internal roles, whether it's marketing, sales, support, product, whichever role it is, that they know how they are actually contributing and impacting the the positive sentiment and the positive value for their customers, right? in the customer success world, what is happening usually, we start off, and we'll see later on the next slide as well, we start off with this operational kind of approach. It usually is another function which is kind of parachuted onto the company as yet another functional silo. That's what usually happens. And usually with maturity, then we realize that, this is not just about operations, but it is around strategy. So in fact, what happens is customer success often becomes like we often use the symbol of an orchestra conductor, and this customer success role, usually it's customer success manager, is the role which is because they're in front of the customer and hearing lots of feedback from the customer, they're then feeding back this information back into the other roles, and therefore they're acting as a kind of internal catalyst internally to the company, with providing they're becoming like the voice of the customer internally at the company, right? So that is what is happening. And I'd just like to ask you, Jonathan, you've seen lots of cases of customer experience. Would you say that customer experience is really approached with this holistic outlook at the companies?
I think it's a good question, Sue. I think at
Mm-hmm,
the moment what we are seeing is some organizations are coming to us and asking us um, to recommend a customer-centric approach to a certain function. For instance, sales. Can you help us to get to a customer-centric sales approach? Things
mm-hmm,
like this. But then, on the other hand, we are seeing some organizations saying, we know that we need to become customer centric. We need to change and
mm-hmm,
transform our organization around what the customers want. We are happy to go through the transformation. Let's do it. So you've got two sides of the coin, actually. Obviously, the full transformation is probably less and less. You're seeing it a lot with a lot of smaller companies, startups who realize that it's probably a lot easier, and it's good to start off that way and build that into your business and the way your organization works. But for the larger organizations, I think some of them are taking longer to do it, but the ones who have done it, they're already getting some great results, excellent results. Probably one of the obvious ones is BlaBlaCar.
mm,
They
mm-hmm,
they're doing amazing. I think they recently won another funding round. Was it a few weeks
mm-hmm,
ago? So
mm-hmm.
that's an example. So you can see the companies that are really making the shift
Yeah.
towards a customer centric focus are really seeing the results.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, I love that example of BlaBlaCar as well. Wonderful. Okay. So if we go, yes, to the next slide, and that's just to show that the difference, and it echoes what Shreesha has just been saying. And I think in the custom experience world, it is a top-down strategic approach towards custom experience. And so that's where it's aligned with my opt-in framework around the customer centricity and the service alignment. Whereas with customer success, usually, as I mentioned, it's usually like an additional functional silo. So it's more of a bottom up approach around those operationalization elements of the opt in. And then as we go along, then we suddenly realize that in fact it shouldn't be just this operational silo, if you like, and that really everybody in the company, whether you're marketing, sales, should be contributing to the success of the customer. So this is why I think that the two worlds can come together and really approach customer success and customer experience as a company-wide strategy, right?
Yeah. So one quick thing there. I've been monitoring the chat. So there were a few things I wanted to quickly point out.
Mm-hmm,
One is Zoltan mentioned about quick wins.
mm-hmm,
So when you operationalize effectively, what you are doing is you are ensuring quick wins with the operational piece of it, and strategy is more aligned towards creating a long-term culture. And then the other thing is, if there was a question by Guru about having a great experience means success. That is true. And if a customer is successful, the customer most likely is to say that they have had a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where they both come hand in hand. And some of the folks were talking about an equation like CS plus CX is equal to. And I've seen a lot of different equations, and I'm pretty sure Jonathan, you and Sue, you have seen as well.
Yes.
I've seen CS plus CX is equal to customer centricity. But in the end, my view is customer success is oriented towards NRR. That's the bottom line. NRR, net dollar retention, net revenue retention, you can look at it. It's financial oriented. Customer experience is more feedback oriented. So it's the voice of the customer, it's NPS, tied to NPS,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you bring both of them together and you say, okay, my customers are feeling good. Is it translating into revenue as well? That's when you have experience and success aligned.
Yes. Yeah, because you can be feeling good, but not necessarily generating revenue, right?
Exactly.
That's possible. So exactly, we want both. Wonderful. Thank you for raising those questions, Shreesha. If we now go on to continue, Jonathan, with the organization, and we've done some analysis here, which you'd like to dig into.
Yeah, definitely. So
Mm-hmm.
what we did is the CXPA, they have the CCXP and they have a blueprint which defines the core elements of customer experience. And what I did is I went through this exercise with Sue and Shreesha, and we looked at the items within the CCXP or the CXPA and mapped them to Sue's framework, the opt-in to framework. And what we are seeing, so on the left, obviously, everything is coming from the CXPA. So that's why it's like a yes down that column there. But if you look on the right hand side, in terms of organization, so things like driving employee engagement and involvement, aligning business goals to customer focused culture, maintaining a dedicated list of top customer experience employees, things like this. I won't go through the whole list, but things like this are slowly being picked up and have it being had in customer success conversations now. Obviously, there's one here, embed CX impact as a criterion for all business and investment decisions. I see, because customer success seems to be still more on the operational side, they haven't managed to pick this one up yet. But for all the rest, you can see that these are things that are evolving in the customer success space, which really brings light to the fact that potentially this is something that both sides of the coin should probably have a look at and investigate together.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was a good exercise. That was a fun exercise, Jonathan. Yeah.
Yeah, let's kick off.
Let's go
Continue.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the process. So the P part of the opt-in, which is process. So here is on the next slide. This is what I consider to be the foundation for the process. So it's on the next slide, Jonathan, yeah, thank you, for the boomerang. So this is what I call the boomerang for the recurring revenue models, but it can be applicable to any model. It's not just for SaaS and subscription. And basically, this is a macro customer journey map showing the first funnel and the second funnel. And I call it the boomerang because basically what we're saying is when you're actually throwing a boomerang, obviously if it's thrown correctly, it will come full circle. It will come back to you, right? And that's what we're doing in the SaaS world. We're making sure that we're throwing the boomerang, symbolizing we're getting the right customers up front who have the potential to succeed. And then that creates this wonderful boomerang effect because they're going to be coming back to you. They're going to be retained. They're going to be expanding because they're getting great value and also great sentiments from their investment. So basically, this is the backbone for all the processes that we're going to be putting in place for customer success and customer experience. And what I really like about this is that when you're in acquisition mode, then it's triggered by hope because we try to project ourselves towards a desired result in the future. But once we're actually made our subscription and we're actually experiencing software because we're actually trying to adopt it, that's when we're in the reality mode. And that's when we're starting to be able to measure the perceived value and the perceived sentiment. So, Shreesha, what's your take on this, please?
Yeah, so I love this boomerang concept. I have always felt that just the funnel, the single funnel that salespeople always care about, it's very limiting in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And by having this boomerang effect, what you are what you are doing is you are saying sales. You also think about what kind of customers you are getting upfront.
Yeah.
Because if you're not getting a good fit customer, then the life of customer success becomes extremely difficult. It's very hard to retain those customers that are not good fit, right? And that's where this land and expand concept makes sense and is represented effectively by this funnel. Also, if you think about the recent years, we have truly witnessed the rise of chief revenue officer, CRO, who
Mm-hmm.
are not only responsible for new revenue, but also for existing revenue, revenue from the existing customer base.
Yeah.
And that's where the funnel, it's time to redefine the funnel. And we need to have this kind of diagram that supports that model.
Yeah. Wonderful. And what I think we really need to do, and that's our great opportunity, as we are converging the two worlds between customer success and customer experience, is to make sure that every milestone along that customer journey, that there are those both the goals which are defined at each of the milestones, but also the desired sentiments, right? So we need both along the whole of the customer journey. And if we can nail that, then I think that's fantastic, right?
Right.
Okay, wonderful. So, Jonathan, over to you for the
Yeah.
frameworks.
Yeah, just to mention that, I mean, so your previous framework, I've used it before. It's very, very good. And just to mention that, I mean, there's a lot of frameworks. I think as professionals, we produce frameworks all the time. But
Mm,
the fact is, there's frameworks on both sides, and obviously those frameworks have been created with a focus. So, for instance, the CX Centric framework, which is really helping to actionalize insights, etc., and go through the process to better your experiences as quick as possible. And it's interesting that we've all got frameworks, but it's more on the separate side.
mm,
Uh, and but if we look overall, what are we trying to achieve? We are trying to grow businesses overall, through looking at things like the customer journey and taking the outside in approach. So really, I think it makes sense to start to break these silos and to begin to revisit these frameworks together. Actually,
mm.
what do you think, Shreesha?
Yeah, I think the frameworks definitely should come together. I'm hearing a lot in the chat about how it's very difficult to measure customer experience, um, and you know, a couple of things there. One is that it's not possible to measure everything directly. Like brand, you take brand concept. What's the value of a brand, right? Does it need to be quantitative? Is qualitative good enough? Those are the questions that we need to ponder. And second is we are talking about customer experience success coming together, frameworks coming together, processes coming together, so that in the end, it all gets accounted by the revenue, right? Every organization is there for business. And so revenue has to be the fundamental measurement for the frameworks. And so, Jonathan, really agree with you. Separate frameworks just does not make sense anymore. And experience can be the uh, overriding guideline, and customer success is the one that makes the accountability happen.
Love that, Shreesha.
Yeah, it is fantastic. And to carry on, Shreesha, from that
Yeah,
around the
absolutely.
process. Hmm.
This is a big concept that I'm talking about here. I
Yeah.
feel like last 5 years we have seen the rise of customer success. It's a new category. It's a new buzzword. Uh, and I've seen several talks about how customer success should be a culture, right?
Mm,
People have been talking about adopting it organization wide. It's not job of a single group within an organization to do customer success.
yeah.
It need to inspire everybody in the organization, right? And I'm saying enough of the talk. Now it's time for walk the talk, right? Next 5 years, I'm predicting it'll all be about customer success. It's all about execution. Um, when I talk about quick wins, I'm not talking about not looking at long term. Quick wins is a way to get immediate consensus around the execution plans and moving forward. right? So what needs to change? The board, if you think about the board conversations have all about new logo acquisition, I think that needs to change. When you are focused on execution, you're talking about not just new logos. What happened with your customer base? How much needle we were able to move on the customer front? What about the adoption, right, of the product service? What are the customers care about? All of that will go into the execution and making customer success happen.
Love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't wait for the next 5 years. Glad to be around, Shreesha. Yeah.
So, so now I'm going to talk about taking execution again forward through focusing on key process areas. And these are some of the key processes that I feel like organizations, if they focus on, they'll be able to get their customers to outcome. One is QBR design, right? You meet with customers often, but you need to have a quarterly cadence of meeting them to understand where they are in terms of their outcomes. Again, it's about the outcome, and by focused on outcome, you are able to demonstrate value to the customer, and value is an important concept. Second is the health scoring design, right? How do you, how does the entire organization come together in terms of having a common understanding what a healthy customer means, right? Or a customer that's in red mean, right? And if a customer is in red, if the customer is not doing well with your product service, are the action plans well understood by the entire organization? The entire organization need to rally around a customer to make things happen for them, right? Role-based reporting, again, it's about clear understanding of who is responsible for what, right? I've seen customer experience being a charter for marketing teams and dedicated teams being responsible for customer success, which is all about action. But again, as we talked about, the entire organization need to be need to understand what customer success means.
Mhm.
Data hierarchy management, again, this is an important concept, and I want to spend a little bit of time here. We truly need a custodian for the customer data. It needs to be centralized, and then whoever needs that customer data, the data need to flow to them. For example, if customer success is responsible for master customer record, then they need to take care of marketing needs. They need to funnel who are the customer advocates, right? So the marketing can then work towards creating case studies, creating testimonials, creating reference databases, right? Um, then the underlying data that's required that need to be automated as well. And in order to automate the underlying data, you need to ensure that all the systems are well integrated, right? They're all feeding the data. We have seen the buzzword around customer data platform, right? Where all the data that's about acquiring customers is coming together, and then later retention data is going through, right? Data visualization. Once you have all the data, you need to be able to look at the 360 aspect of it, right? It needs to come together in great looking dashboard that's actionable. Closing the loop is again important. You're collecting all the feedback data, but are you closing the loop with your customers? Or is it just restricted to the dashboard, right? Alert workflows is again an important concept, but because it's teeing up actions on top of the feedback that's coming in. And lastly, adoption and culture, cannot talk enough about it. You have to ensure that adoption is taken care so that it's not just the talk, it's walk the talk, right? It becomes a culture in the
Mhm.
organization where every single person is responsible for customer success. Previously, we used to talk about how every member is in sales. We now should talk about how every member in an organization is in customer success.
Mm. I love that. Absolutely. That's a great summary of the key process areas. Thank you, Shreesha, for that. What are you seeing, Jonathan, in terms of the overlap with the customer experience world with those?
Yeah, so I think this is a fantastic list. I think the
Hmm.
interesting thing is the customer success, they're coming from the operational perspective, and they're
Hmm.
very proactive in entering the customer journey and changing the outcome and making that a successful one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot that the customer experience community can learn from you guys. But also I'm seeing a big overlap. So things like data visualization, closing the loop, the health score element as well. So combining the experiential score with the more operational elements and the engagement sort of KPIs. So I think there is a, and obviously the last is the definitely adoption and culture
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah.
There is a big overlap. So I think there's a lot of value to begin to explore these at a more detailed
Mm-hmm.
level, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Great summary. Thank you. And then you go on, Shreesha, to tell us about what makes a great CSM.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this is again a core concept in
Mm-hmm.
terms of how can CSMs be superstars in their organization?
Mm-hmm.
And they can by focusing on five important areas. I talked about key process areas. Now let's talk about prioritization, key focus area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, by prioritizing, what a customer success manager do is basically figure out which customers actually need help support, which
Mm-hmm.
customers are doing well, right? Or how to make the customers figure out what they need to do to reach the outcome. Revenue impact is again important because you are again now quantifying to the entire organization the impact of focusing on the customer. Value management is about demonstrating value to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
It's again making the customer aware of what the product is delivering to them, how the product is helping them, product or services is helping the customer achieve results. Visibility is important because a customer success manager needs to understand what's happening with every single customer of theirs they are responsible for. Without visibility, they'll not be able to take appropriate actions. Operational efficiency is again a key focus area uh, because you're not able to um, focus on all the customers if you're not operating at the highest level. You need to figure out every customer needs, anticipate that before the customer even comes back to you with explicit need requests, right?
Yeah.
Isabel talked about one to many concept, and this is where again operational efficiency comes in. With automation, the CSM can achieve that one to many aspect, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the customers who are long tail customers can potentially help with digital touch, with automation end to end. And all your premium customers, they need the training, the support, any love that CSM can provide. So you have been associated with so many organizations in terms of advocating how to go about customer success in terms of execution. What's your take on what makes a great CSM?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what really differentiates from a good CSM to a great CSM are those CSMs who really go the extra mile each time. And it's what you mentioned at the bottom there, and the value, right? I think each touch point, each interaction with the customer should be an opportunity to move the needle. So those are the CSMs who are really on top of their subject, not just the product, but also the domain in which they are operating. And so they can help as a consultative role and help the customers actually move on and progress. But I would say that's something which they can also learn as they're becoming more mature in the role. And I think gradually what happens is as well is they are then feeding back into their own company everything that they're hearing about the customer, the feedback, and they're being able to make value proposals internally to their own company and not just value proposals externally to the customer. So I think the great CSMs are those that are able to prove value continually to their customers and also internally to their internal customers at their own companies. That would be my take on a great CSM. I don't know if you agree with me, Shreesha. Yeah.
Right.
I love that, guys. Thank you. So, just closing the process side of things, just to say, guys, feel free to put your questions in the chat. We do get round to them. So as you can see here, as if you didn't join at the start, this is taken from the CXPA. We've mapped it to the opt-in 2 framework. So here we focus on the processes. That's why the CXPA side of things, the CX column is all yes, apart from a few which Sue and Shreesha added. So as you can see here, again, there's a massive overlap. Here you've got 2, 4, 6, 6 items where it's either a no or evolving. So things like on the CX side, we're not doing things like business reviews and success plans. The first one at the top right there, establish a well-defined process each time an experience is created or changed. Obviously, that's CX specific, and also using iterative ideation and prototyping, really about innovating and co-creating experiences. Obviously, that's something that's specific to customer experience. Also on the empathy map side, yeah, I don't think customer success have really incorporated that yet. But then on the CX side, we haven't really put a focus on the onboarding side yet of things yet, which is key actually. So that's one thing that CX guys can definitely take away. If there's one thing you do take away, hopefully there's more than one. Please take that part. The CX guys, onboarding is so crucial. Yeah, it's a big opportunity actually. So that's something that I really learned going into this, and also advocacy programs. So actually we talk about getting your net promoters, those promoters, and then the net promoter score to actually promote for you. With the customer success side, they're a bit more advanced. They're talking about customer stories, or inviting customers to webinars. They've got everything basically planned out, and there's a nice process around what to do when someone is an advocate. So I think there's definitely stuff from both sides that we can learn, and obviously even where there's an overlap, probably CX and CS folks, they look at the same thing. For instance, closing the loop, they have their own perspective on it, and we need to come together just for those actually where we're already overlapping on anyway. So I will move on quickly because I'm conscious of time. We'll move to tools, Sue, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So for the tools, so in fact, it's Shreesha's going to tell us all about the tools on the
Okay.
next slide, please. Thanks, Shreesha.
Okay. And also at the same time, I launched this poll just to find out if you guys are using any customer experience or customer success technology. But take it away, Shreesha.
Yeah, so this is my obviously favorite slide. Talk about a platform that I'm involved with every single day. So at Medallia, we are very proud that we, in the industry, we are the first ones to bring customer experience and customer success together, right? And as I said, Medallia has been in business from 2000. We have been focused traditionally on customer experience, and then customer success came about with the acquisition of Strikedeck in 2019. And since then, we are spearheading this concept of bringing both of them together. And one thing that's at the core of it is capturing signals. We are obsessed with capturing as much signal as possible from the market. So it's speech, surveys, videos, digital, messaging, social, from the web traffic, chat logs, notes generated by CSMs, uh, QBR reports generated by CSMs. All of those are signals, and have data on how your customers are feeling, right? As I said, think about NPS, CSAT as explicit feedback that's coming in from the customer. And obviously that has clear signals of how customers are feeling. But think about also the notes, or a call that has happened, or a Zoom that has happened between a CSM and a customer. There's so much rich data that's out there. Support tickets, again, if a customer is feeling frustrated that a ticket has not been addressed, they'll express, and that's there in the ticket, right? And that needs to flow through into a platform to figure out that the customer is frustrating right now. It's not having a great experience with your support system, right? Once your signals are there, then it's about extracting intelligence from those signals, right? So that insights can be generated that can be acted upon. And that's again, we have a Medallia Athena, which is a state of the art uh, ML AI platform that can extract signals, that can extract insights from those signals, right? And think about, if you just think about the survey data coming through an NPS and CSAT, and if you apply NLP, natural language processing technology, you'll be amazed at the data that comes through in terms of clusters where you need to focus your attention.
Mm-hmm.
There may be a problem with your onboarding, and the customer, through their feedback, is saying, onboarding was okay, but I'm facing these challenges. Now, the onus is on you to then take action to solve those challenges,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So once you have the intelligence um, working and in terms of generating insights, then it's all about teeing up actions. And that's where a state of the art automation engine goes a long way, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'll go back to the one to many, the digital touch that Isabel had mentioned. Uh, how do you make it happen? You can make it happen through an automation engine. It's just not possible to do manually. It's just not possibly possible to have a manual oversight to every single customer of yours, right?
Yeah.
All customers are not equal, right? There are customers who are paying more and they need to be given premium status, which means that CSM need to get on a call with them. CSM needs to have a quarterly update status check. Executives need to be aligned with the executives from the customer organization, right? But then your long tail customers, the customers who are not paying that much, it doesn't mean that they don't deserve success.
No.
They also need to move to the outcome, and that's where the digital touch makes it happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. If a customer comes back and gives you 10 out of 10 on the NPS survey,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's great. Everybody's feeling good about it, but are you taking action on that? And that action need not be manual. If you have set up the automated process, then
Mm-hmm.
as soon as 10 on 10 comes through, there's a follow-up email that goes out which says, thank you for giving us great feedback. Uh, we would love to feature you in a case study. Are you willing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the message could be, if you provide us 3 referrals, then we would be happy to send over a swag to you, right? And then based on the feedback from the customer, again, another automated action can happen that's fulfilling the promises that were made in the email. And that's an example, Sue, Jonathan, on how automation can ensure that end-to-end customer experience and success is happening.
Absolutely. I love that example. And I've just seen on the poll that, in fact, the majority of the participants, 40%, are actually using tools which are both customer experience and customer success related. So again, that's an encouraging result. And that ties into my question to you, Shreesha, because obviously you coming from Strikedeck, which is a customer success platform, and now Medallia, which is a customer experience platform. Do you think going forward we'll still be talking about separate customer success and separate customer experience platforms, or will we be talking about customer platforms?
That's a great question, Sue. I'm going to put a forward-looking hat on, and in terms of tools, there is customer experience platforms, there's customer success platforms, and as I had mentioned on one of the previous slides, there are customer data platforms. I definitely feel that there is going to be convergence, and there is going to be one customer-centric platform. Um, on the other hand, we're going to see rise of many new tools focused on niche areas. For example, onboarding. There could be tools that are just focused on how do we ensure that customer gets onboarded well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
There are going to be training platforms that are going to focus on how do we ensure that customer gets trained without that much manual effort. So that's how see tools landscape shaping up. So
yeah, absolutely. It's exciting times, right?
absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shreesha, for that. which brings us to the last part of the framework, which is the information or everything around data. So if we just continue, you were talking earlier, Shreesha, about the breadth and depth. So maybe you can just do a deep dive into that here, please.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
data is the foundation for experience and success both. And trust me when I say this, there are enormous challenges to bring data together, right? And why is that? Because there are gaps in the data, right? Data recency is a problem. Certain data becomes stale, right? They do not have the recent information. Data duplication is a problem, right? A Bank of America may be represented as BOFA, right, in some places, or Bank of America in some places. How do you bring all of that together? So data duplication, data representation is a challenge. So many challenges on the data front, and that's where making sure that integration um, is working flawlessly in bringing data together in terms of master customer record, right,
Yeah.
is very, very important. And again, speaking of master customer record, it's very important that you take time to design the master customer record,
Yeah.
because you have to ensure that all the important attributes are covered. Once you have the master customer record in place, built on good integration schemas, then it's very easy to
Hmm.
bring up a customer 360.
Yeah.
And as I said before, customer 360 is probably that unifying point um, for CX and CS to come together, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If you have total customer visibility, which is the customer 360, then you can have account health algorithms working, right? That figures out which customers are doing really well. If a customer is giving you 10 out of 10 in on the NPS, then that reflects in the product adoption as well. The product adoption shows that customer is using the product well, and that's why giving 10 out of 10. If the customer is giving 10 out of 10, but the customer adoption is showing red, then you know that there's a mismatch happening and
Hmm.
you need to take action of some sort here. This is
Yeah.
the benefit of having CX and CS together, right? And
Yes.
last but equally important is the predictive analytics, where can you anticipate uh, can you anticipate a problem that customer is going to have and preempt that? I'll give you an example here, which is I think is a brilliant in the industry. Pure Storage, right? Which is obviously giving storage products for the customers. They have so much monitoring in terms of how customers are using and how the storage platform is working, that they are able to anticipate that certain cluster is going to go bad in next 10 months, and they are able to ship a new storage unit, and the customer is surprised. He said, I did not know that I need to replace this,
Hmm.
and it's down the road, and you are being proactive in shipping this new unit. And that's where predictive analytics will come to the forefront in delivering excellent customer
Yeah.
experience based on the customer success metrics.
Yeah. I love that. And it's so important what you're saying, Shreesha, about the master customer data. And if that is not correctly structured, you can have lots of data and it's still in silos, but you can't make any sense of it, right? And so that whole structure around the master data is so important. And I think perhaps in the bigger companies where you have customer experience, that is probably initiative which is top of mind and it's actually being implemented. I think with some of the smaller, especially in the SaaS world, the startups, they don't necessarily have a team of people who are looking after those kind of aspects, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not as easy. Great, wonderful. So just to finish on that subject of data, this last slide is a comparison. And we've categorized that around three categories around data: sentiment, engagement, and outcomes. And we've used the color scheme just to show in orange what is applicable to both customer success and customer experience. So you can see that in parallels, it's across the board: sentiment, engagement, and outcomes. For the green, that's what's just actually particular to customer success. So it's, for example, you can see it's with engagement where we have the majority of engagement KPIs and engagement data. So we have, for example, the health score, which you don't have in customer experience. We talk about customer adoption KPIs and usage, which you don't have in customer experience. And then for customer experience, which is in blue, the particularity is more on the sentiment side. And we've been talking throughout this whole webinar that customer experience is more about the sentiment. So it's not a surprise that, you know, the data around sentiment is more for the customer experience. So it's quite interesting to see this comparison. And we're talking a lot about outcomes, and we see that in green, we have a lot of data in customer
Sue,
success.
we've lost your screen. I think we're seeing someone create a poll. There we
Oh,
go.
okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
my fault. Sorry.
Okay.
Apologies.
Can you see that now? Yes. So it's interesting to see that for the outcomes, it's in green. And that's where we're talking things about what Jonathan was just talking about, in fact, success plans, which is something which we readily do in customer success and which you're not doing in customer experience. And we're also talking about customer performance as well, because obviously when we talk about customer success, it means that you're going to help your customers to measure business results. So that's all about performance. So we're talking about that kind of data as well. So interesting. Again, lots of room
So
for
one thing,
convergence, I think, there.
yeah. So one thing,
Yes.
if there's one slide that should be screen captured, I would definitely recommend this.
Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is, all the metrics, all the way,
Mm-hmm.
quantitatively you can define CS and CX coming together is here.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I thought it was quite indicative of where we're trying to converge, I think. So thank you for that, Shreesha. Great. And I think we have the last poll coming up. Do you think that customer experience and customer success should be combined under one team? So I'm really thrilled that the majority of you said yes, because if you said no after what we've just presented, I would be very worried actually. So that's great.
So I don't
Yes.
think everyone can see it yet. I will share.
Okay.
There were a few more people who still need to vote, so I'll wait and then I'll show that to everyone else.
Okay.
You can see it because you're a co-host. You see.
Okay. Okay. Great. Wonderful.
Yeah. So apologies, guys. I was actually creating a poll there, and so it went over the screen for a second while Sue was talking. But I think at this stage, I will show that poll so everyone can see. So you should be able to see now that we have 73% are saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
We're still getting, there's two people who are saying no. So I'd love to hear from them. Hopefully, we'll have a bit of time for questions at the end. So it would be
Yes.
nice to hear from the one saying no,
Mm-hmm.
or the six saying it's complicated, and some are saying not sure, 10%. But we're still, there's 70% who are saying yes, we need to be combining customer experience and customer success and looking at this in a holistic way. So I think we should probably follow on this conversation with some more deep dives into
Yeah.
certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
But in conclusion, I really appreciate everyone for joining today. We run, so through Centric, I run a lot of events, by the way. So feel free to share, to follow us on LinkedIn, and I'm sure Shreesha and Sue, if you probably put your information as well in, because I know, especially yourself, Sue, with Success Chain, you're doing a lot of trainings around customer success. So probably put that information in the chat so that people can follow you. But in conclusion, what we're saying is let's stop evolving separately in two echo chambers. So let's get some cross pollination, is it pollinization going between the two? The second is one point which Sue mentioned earlier, which is we need to converge our strategic and operational best practice. So the top-down sort of strategic, which is organization-wide, and then the operational best practices, which are really coming from the customer success side of things. We need to start converging these. The third is customer success and customer experience need to thrive together as a top-down, outside-in strategy. So it's really looking at things from the customer's perspective. From the customer's perspective, are they successful? What is their experience? Bringing in that outside-in approach. So that's the third thing. And fourth is we really need to join forces and have more events like this to start learning from each other, basically.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if you guys saw the polls. I'll just share that again and we'll get to the final slide, I guess, from yourself, Sue.
Yes.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see the polls.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
This is the final slide, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just as the grand finale. This is just, as you can see, it's an Excel file. So we put this together and we've summarized the main process, tools, and information areas, and just tried to map out, okay, what is already done in customer experience, what is already done in customer success, and what is not done. So it's a kind of summary of what we've been seeing throughout this whole webinar. I don't know if the animation works, Jonathan. Oh, wow. Well, just for that, I think it's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. Should we do it again, Jonathan? Just for the fun.
One more time, one more. Ready?
Yes. Ready? Wait for this. Wow. Okay. So that's what we're trying to do. And of course, that's not exhaustive. There are lots of other things that we could have added there, but those are the main ones that we've been talking about. So I think there's a great opportunity. You can say that there's more in grey, meaning yes, there already is an overlap, and very few in no. So I think your suggestion, Jonathan, of taking this further is a great suggestion, because I think we've just scratched the surface here, right? With what we've been doing. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's a great idea.
We
So
need to take this further.
yeah.
So we'll be putting on some workshops and events on this topic. So we'll put the LinkedIn in there. So feel free to follow that. That way you can be updated. But I think at this time we can, if there's a few minutes left, we probably can go to some questions and answers. We've finished just on time. But if there's anyone in the audience who has any questions, feel free to let us know. Put it in the chat or come off mute one at a time, and we can probably spend 5 minutes just hearing.
Yes.
Okay. And I really appreciate everyone who's joined, by the way.
Scott has a question. Yeah.
I don't mind jumping in quickly. A
Yeah.
statement and a question. Sue, fantastic. Shreesha, Jonathan, brilliant. The question is, I wonder how much the fixed sometimes opinions on CS versus CX is based on our personal experience in terms of organizational structure. My company that I've been at 10 years has this, therefore that's what I know, et cetera. So I wonder how much that reflects in your experience.
Yeah. Do you want to go for that, Shreesha? Because I think yes.
Yeah, I can go first.
Okay.
So Scott, you bring up a great point. I mentioned this in the chat as well in response to one other question. Every organization will go about the execution in different ways based on the resources available. And by that, I mean, if you have a sales leader who cares a lot about execution, the organization, in that organization, experience may be the primary functional area, right? And customer success may be restricted to a group. If there is a CRO who cares about the growth in terms of revenue coming from customer base as well, then customer success may be the overarching theme there. And so that's where I'm talking about, based on the resources available, based on the style of leadership, the execution may change, may be different. But what I'm foreseeing in the future is that there will be talk about how customer centricity can only happen when both these concepts come together.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, yeah.
And I think your definitions, Sue, that you went through solve so much of these circular conversations. It's just like the definitions are beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much, Scott. Yeah. And I think that's what's missing, right? And I think there's a lot of misinterpretation within companies themselves as to what both mean. And even in the world of customer success now, even customer success folks are calling themselves customer experience folks, right? And vice versa. Because there's this kind of melting pot idea. And I think because we do need to get down to the nitty gritty, as you say, Scott, of what they mean, right? What's important at the end of the day is that their execution, whether it's customer success or customer experience or both, which is what we're advocating, is in the eyes of the customer well perceived. That's what we need to get to, right? Because what we're talking around now is more like internal organization. So if we can get that internal organization so that everything is transparent and wonderfully perceived by the customers, then I think we've nailed it, right?
100%.
Yes.
There's a question from Katia.
Mhm.
What are the tips for an optimal CS and CX integration with employees and customers based in different countries? I think it's a great question because of the times we live in. There's more and more collaboration happening with people based in different locations. Um, my take, I'll give my take. This question is we are going to see a lot more innovation happen to ensure collaboration between people in different geographic regions.
Mhm.
One example there is can there be an idea exchange where employees and customers can contribute in an offline manner, and then collaboration can happen offline or online based on that idea. The second innovation is around video. We now understand that video is a primary vehicle used in communication between customers, between employees, right? Can there be more automation on the video where transcription happens automatically and action items are extracted out of that translation and mapped to different people as required, right? So those are the kind of innovation that will happen to ensure an optimal CS and CX integration.
Yeah,
Love that.
I love that.
We got some people with their hands up. We've got
Mhm.
McKenna. I don't know.
You
Yeah.
said it right. It's McKenna. Thank you.
Go.
I do have a question. As a former agent who used Medallia, my concern was my NPS scores weren't bad, but what would happen is when they had disgruntled information, it affected my score as an agent. So as an agent, I was great, but then I would get a 6 as my overall NPS score because they were unhappy with the brand or something that the brand did. Is there some way with Medallia itself specifically that they can separate that data where it doesn't necessarily affect my performance as well as my bonus?
Yeah, that's a great question, McKenna. So we've done some innovation there. Medallia acquired recently a product called Stella Connect, which is all about contact center solution, which ensures that agents, uh, get the right kind of feedback and does not, and the overall feedback can be looked at a more granular level. So there are a lot more innovations happening there to make the scenario that you mentioned happen.
Thank you. I appreciate that because some of the concerns would be viable concerns. And I felt like my company was not getting that information because it just was showing up under me as an agent. And I was like, well, how can you get this data that you need? And it doesn't exactly apply to me, but thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you, McKenna. We got another question from Zoltan and then from Farhan as well. So go for it, Zoltan.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thank you, Jonathan, Sue, and Shreesha for the presentation, and it was really resourceful. Even the conversations in the chat were great. You all touched upon on company transformation and becoming more customer centric. And in your opinion, now that a lot of companies are starting to do business virtually and out of office, do you think that transformation towards customer centricity is going to be more difficult? From the perspective of people are not necessarily in the office and they don't kind of collaborate and don't see other people being really customer focused and customer centric. Do you think that transformation is going to become more difficult now that companies are moving digital?
Yeah, Zoltan, I think the answer to that question is definitely yes. I think even if you take out the customer centricity aspect, just being able to maintain or be intentional about the culture that you create is difficult in a remote setting. You've got even the situation with onboarding, etc., has to be revised. It's a big area. Sometimes I've seen contact center staff complaining that in 3 to 4 months they only had sort of 2 to 3 calls from their manager, etc. So I think that actually us as organizations, I think we need to start looking at the employee experience and really adapting and applying some principles and best practices there. I think we're in a new area, a new space when it comes to the remote experiences. And I think that if you want to create a strong strategy, a customer-centric strategy, and that's backed up by culture, I think, yeah, it's not something that's easy in a remote setting, but it is something that is possible, by the way.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, Zoltan, I would like to add that it is difficult, yes, but my prediction is that it'll get accelerated in this new virtual world. Just like with what's happening in the digital transformation, companies that were thinking about digital transformation down the road had to scramble and make it happen because there was no other choice, right? Similarly, I would think that the coming together will just get accelerated in this new virtual world. And also I'm seeing, I'm also pretty active in the investment community, and I'm seeing new technologies are coming to make this happen. There are office spaces that gives you a feeling that you're in the office, though you're not. I know it's not the great experience, but it's making up for the isolation that has happened in this world.
Yeah, thanks, Shreesha.
Want to go to Farhan? Please, good to see you, Farhan.
Yes, very good to see everyone. So I'm already connected to you, so very good to see you again. And Shreesha, thank you very much for such an amazing presentation. So much stuff to absorb and explained in a very simple and such a constructive way. It was very easy to understand. So thank you very much. Just a question: since I worked as a practitioner with some of the largest banks globally, I did not see organization at a top level talking about customers CS and CX separately. For management, for the top management, it's customer experience. They understand it as, and then it's the role of the customer experience. Like I was a global head and director of customer experience, so it's my role to bring those two roles together and mix them and keep that at a level, but present it to the management a singular definition. For them, it's NPS. For them, it's onboarding. Doesn't matter if it's CS or through CX, but for them, it's there. So at what level it becomes very important to have this bifurcation or differentiation, because as it goes in the funnel at the top, that distinction just diminishes somehow. At least in this part of the world I've seen, and I've worked in a few parts of the world.
Yeah, I'll go first, Sue, but this is an area where I'm pretty sure you'll have a lot of comments. Farhan, appreciate your kind words. On the banks, I completely get what you're saying. It's a customer experience that has been there for a long time, and that's a concept that at banks, old institutions like banks, they understand really well. But I'll give you an example that's personal to me. I was a customer for a large bank here in US, and another bank opened a branch close to my home, and they rolled out red carpet. And so I started moving some money from the old bank to this new bank. And then once I was almost gone from the old bank, they gave me a call and they said, we are offering you free advice, wealth management sessions. Would you be interested? And by the time I was already lost. And why I'm pointing that out was that the data was always there. They saw the withdrawals happening, but they did not act on it. And that's where bringing in the concept of customer success along with customer experience is very handy. And for senior executives like you, that's the challenge where you have to make your executives understand that customer success is about outcomes. And and if you are able to make customer successful, then overall experience will be impacted in a positive way.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good point. And if I may add, Jonathan, if I have a couple of minutes just to say something.
Yeah.
I'm not taking too long.
Go for it. Share your opinion. Go for it.
Yeah, it's absolutely correct, because I was very clear about this, because I was running one of the biggest banks here in UAE, and I worked with Citibank as well. So I did not look at a number as an absolute number. For example, the NPS was very high, but I was reading through the NPS and I had so many examples where the customer had given me a 9 or 10, but when you read through the information, the customer is saying, I'm a loyal customer because I've been banking with you for 10 years. My generations have been banking, but I'm not happy. I will always give you a very good rating because I love this bank.
Yeah.
But you have a possibility to improve here and there. So we, at that stage, we understood that. That's why, if I may proudly say that my bank was, rated as #1 bank in UAE for a certain period of time, because we wanted to read, and that's what I teach through my present, whenever I do present. Jonathan knows me, whenever we do some kind of teaching. Yes, this is where organizations are losing out, that they don't read through what the customer is actually saying. You absolutely make a point. I will leave it to Sue now to say something. Thank you.
Great point.
Yeah, no, and it was coming back. I love the question, and I think, yeah, being in a big bank, I don't think they would naturally talk about customer success, right? They would talk about, as you said, about customer experience. And I think it comes a little bit back to what Shreesha, what you were talking about at the beginning around explicit and implicit data, right? Because an NPS score, okay, they're probably saying, yes, we're giving you a score out of 9 or 10 or whatever, which, it looks great, everything's hunky-dory. But in fact, in what we're doing in customer success, we're not just asking, would you recommend our product or our brand or our company or whatever? We're actually trying to get that explicit data around how they have achieved outcomes, right? And if they have, then that is an indicator, that is going to be a predictive indicator towards whether or not that customer is going to stay with us, right? So it's all about the interpretation of the data.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Any more questions before we close this meeting? I hope everyone's enjoyed it so far. Feel free to connect with us and to connect with others who've been in the chat. Also, for more events like this, feel free to follow the CX Centric LinkedIn page, which I will put there in the chat. But I don't know, Sue, if there's anything else to add or if there's any more questions before we end this.
Not from my side. I can't see any more hands up for questions, but I think, there's please reach out to us. Reach out to Jonathan, Shreesha, and myself.
Yeah.
If you have any more ideas of maybe specific aspects which we could do a deep dive on in future webinars, right? Because there we've obviously just scratched the surface and there are so many topics. So that would be great, to have your feedback on that. So thanks to everyone. This was a great webinar. I really enjoyed this.
Okay, and we'll make the slides available also after this. So we'll send the PDF to everyone who joined. Feel free to, if you did enjoy it, feel free to tell your network or anyone who could be interested. Let them know that you've enjoyed it as well. But we appreciate your time. Thank you, Sue, and thank you, Shreesha, as well. It's good to connect with you from across the pond.
Enjoyed as well.
Thank you, both of you. Wonderful. Great.
Thank you all so much for this very informative webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherry.
Glad you enjoyed it, Sherry.
Oh, good to see you, Sue.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good to see you, Scott, as well. Thank you.